Recently I bought this 1-inch belt sander from Harbor Freight and did a review on it, and I'll put a link above to be able to direct you to that. But I went over to Harbor Freight to pick up some additional belts, and they only had 3 grits of belt. They had a 40, an 80, and a 120. I went ahead and picked up the 120 grit, but I want to be able to have other grits that they did not have. I want to be able to get the 220, the 320, 500, maybe even the 2000 grits, and they don't have those belts. And quite frankly, I don't want to wait online. These are not expensive. This only costs $3.99 for 5 belts. That's really not the issue. The issue is I want to be able to get the finer grits and have them readily available to me. My alternative is to make them. So today I'm going to make a simple little jig that I can get accurate measurements and make my own belts. Let's get started today. I've made belts in the past, and I've always had a problem with them being a little bit too short or a little bit too long. With this jig, it makes it where they're perfect every time. I'm going to cut 3 pieces of plywood that are 15 inches long, and I think that'll be plenty of length. And again, this is just scrap plywood that I got from the plywood bin. I'm making up this jig as I go, and I decided to cut 2 of the boards 15 inches and the third one 10 inches long. This will make up the 3 basic components that I need to create this jig. The idea that I'm going to have is I'm going to use these 2 dowel rods on each end. I'm going to make one of them fixed. I'm going to make the other one where it will move. And I'm going to have this piece of plywood here, and it didn't need to be 15 inches. It needed to be shorter. Right in this area. And that way, I can have accurate lengths for my belts. That'll be able to go right there. I'll be able to set it exactly the 30 inches that I want, or the size of the existing belt, and then I'll be able to make the cut. Okay, I've made just some really basic measurements. This is a 10-inch piece that I'm going to put right here in the center, and I've got these marks in place. I'm also going to put the dowel rods. These are 1 3/8 dowel rod, but you can really use any diameter that you want. And I want to be able to have it where the top edge runs along here. So I just measure down for the center, and I have a mark here and here. Now this one is going to be fixed. I'm just going to screw that into place and be done with it. I'm going to take this over to the router table, and I'm going to make a little notch right in this area to be able to have the opportunity to put a little tension onto the belt. I have the router table set up now, and all I'm going to be doing is cutting this little small slot to be able to allow that to put tension onto the belt. What I've done is I put in a 1/4 inch bit. I have 2 stop blocks. I'll be able to put it in, slide it down, stop it, and be able to make repeated cuts until this goes all the way through. And I will be making several cuts to do that. I went ahead and made 4 different passes, taking small chunks at a time to be able to make this cut. I wanted to be able to keep it where it did not put any extra stress on the router, and I could cut it evenly and smoothly. You do have to be careful. The drawing on the top surface lets me know exactly where the bit is. You must keep your hands and your fingers away from that area when it comes through the surface for safety. Certainly don't want to get cut with a router bit. In making this jig, I don't want to have to buy anything, so I'm just looking around the shop and scrounging for parts. I found an old knob that I had made years ago that had the 1/4 20 insert, so I'm going to use that. So I drilled a hole through the dowel rod, and I had an old screw that was from the plumbing job that I had done years ago. So I'm just going to screw that into place. And this will make a real easy, quick way to be able to do it. Granted, there are easier ways, but again, I wanted to use just strictly scraps around the shop. So with this in place, what I can do is just slip it in. There we go. And now that will hold it in place, and I can adjust the tension with this old knob that I had made years ago. All right, I'm going to go ahead and attach this top piece, and I'm going to attach the other dowel rod here permanently in position, and we'll have this jig finished in no time. Okay, I pre-drilled 3 holes to be able to attach this part of the jig. So I'm just going to clamp that in place right now and then screw it in. And one last screw, and that completes the jig. Let's see how it works. One of the things that I want to do is I do want to make this bevel cut here. I don't want to have it just a blunt cut. So what I'm going to do is get the angle. We're going to put that right there, line it up. That gives me the angle that I need. And now I'm just going to transfer that over to, on the back side of this jig, I've marked a 1-inch line. This is going to give me the width of the sandpaper that I need to be able to cut. So that's going to be my mark right there. And with my paper just sitting on the back of the jig, I can take a sharp knife and be able to cut that. I think a real simple little clamp just to hold that paper down will work well. This is 11 inches long, so I'm going to need 3 of these. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those now. With this piece cut, I just simply put it down here. Marked it with a pencil, and then I cut it with an old pair of scissors. The second piece I just slipped underneath, using the front edge of my jig as a guide, and then I just mark it with a pencil, and that's going to give me, and cut it with perfect alignment on those 2 pieces. Old scissors. Okay, I'm holding this down in place for the moment with just a couple of clamps. I got a nice tight splice, and I'm going to use this tape to be able to hold it. I'm going to place it right there. Make sure that it's sealed really good. And I'll cut off the excess. And we'll save that for the next piece. Okay, there we go. Remove the clamp. And we have our first piece of our belt in place. I do want to check now because this is where we need the size of the belt to be accurate. So I have that right there. Okay, and making my final cut, I'm going to tighten it. So that is going to give me the exact dimensions that I need to have. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and cut this and get that angle set up. The other thing I can do is go ahead and put the belt on backwards, so I'll be able to put the tape on it. And I'll put this right in place. So now I'll just swing this over, and I'll be able to mark this exactly where it needs to be. Now with both ends clamped, both of them cut, and that gives me a nice tight joint. We'll go ahead and put the tape right in place. Make sure it's sealed really good. I'm hoping that this reinforced tape will work well. We're going to try it out right now. First thing, I slipped on the belt. I do want to put this guard on. Fits extremely well, because so I'm happy with that part. Does break, the jig's working to size. It will hit this guard. All right. There we have it. That works perfect. Let me get a little piece of wood and we'll try out actually sanding something. That is awesome. Let's inspect these. That's holding up real well. And that's the third joint. That's a success. I love it.